So yes, I am the Chief of Innovation and Performance for the City of Pittsburgh. How is everyone doing this morning? Happy Friday. So yeah, like Nathan said, you know, obviously I have innovation and performance in my title. That doesn't mean I own it. That doesn't mean I'm an expert. It really means that I rely on a slew of really, really smart, amazing people to do magic together in the city. And I'm just here to share with you a little bit of what we've been thinking, you know, as Nathan said, big picture wise, on trying to move innovation, you know, forward in the city, and, you know, actually just looking more for your insight and your input in terms of trying to make change. Some of you may have heard this, but basically we are trying to make an inclusive innovation roadmap. And what that means is it's a strategic plan to drive inclusive innovation in the city. As some of you are familiar, when you are in this space around technology and innovation, it's very easy to get distracted. There's a shiny new software. There's a new magic bullet that can solve, you know, all your problems and ills in the city. And it's you know, something that will just promote and overpromise wonders. So what I wanted to do in this role is really think about holistically what we collectively can do together. What is the framework? What is the action plan? You know, something that will be driven by city leadership, but obviously be a living document that's collectively owned by all. It's much easier said than done, but this is what we kind of worked out in terms of a process. This has been something that we've been working on for over a year at this point. We started last summer when I first joined with innovation roundtables, which some of you may have been invited to, and it was the start of my introduction. We held 6 roundtables in the mayor's office that was attended by the mayor and senior staff from the city. And basically it was 2 key questions, right? So it was first acknowledging that innovation actually was already happening in the city even before I came on board, and to obviously thank and recognize that. But also to say, you know, what do we need to do collectively to take innovation to the next level? And then 2, how can we make innovation more inclusive? The second question was something very specific, meaning that innovation was happening in the city, but how can we ensure that innovation was happening for the whole city? And asking those stakeholders to think critically about the pockets that have been left out in innovation, those that might not come here, those that might not have you know, the tech degrees, or might not have the networks that we've been fortunate enough to have. And so there were 6, and it's hard to put things in boxes, but we had one for the maker community, we had one for the tech entrepreneurs and startups, we had one for co-working spaces and accelerators, we had one for clean tech, bioenergy, and then we had one for venture capitalists and angel investors. So very diverse set of actors throughout the city. And we, even if you could not come personally, we did a very active social media presence. You can even tweet us now on PGHIP, which is our Innovation and Performance Twitter handle, and this was also captured in summary reports that you can find online, as well as the City Cable channel and YouTube channel. The next thing we did was do 2 extensive wide public surveys, you know, with the meetup groups, and use it Engage Pittsburgh, which is our online platform to solicit discussion on key questions. So again, we asked the same questions that we asked in the Innovation Roundtable. What can we do? And we got a wealth of different opinions and comments and really great suggestions on what are the things that we collectively can do to drive innovation forward. We also looked abroad, like Nathan said, we looked outside of the city. We benchmarked over 40 cities around the world, including many of our domestic counterparts, but we also looked into other countries, local municipalities, to see what they did. Not only in terms of the outcome of what determined the success, but the process in which they went about doing it. How did they get the people together? How did they make the decision? How did they measure their performance? And it was just a really enlightened piece of analysis when you saw the wealth of information that was just outside our borders. At that point, we had a really, really long list of really good ideas, suggestions, but obviously we need to think about some sort of prioritization. How do we actually narrow this to ensure that it's actually feasible? What can we do together? So we went through this criteria. Is it inclusive? Is it innovative? Is this something that we have the capacity to do? Is this something that we can afford? How fast is the implementation? Are we looking at something that I can just do next year, today, or are we talking about a multi-year effort that would really need to be planned systematically? So we went through this criteria and quickly narrowed the scope into 6 focus areas, 20 goals, and over 90 plus actions. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of these actions. And again, I would classify these actions as actions that we've already done, just because we can just do it, actions that we haven't done and really look forward to your support, partnerships, and then actions we probably haven't even thought of that, I rely on you to think about in your own realms. This makes it a living document because at the end of the day, these 6 focus areas don't change, but the actions as we complete it, as they evolve, will change with it. And this is the goal, right? It's really hard to be so precise in definitions and terms, I think. I really think when we talk about innovation and inclusive innovation, it's not an end state. It's an ongoing process. But if I had to define it, this is why we are doing this roadmap. We are trying to go for a vision of inclusive innovation which provides equitable access to products and services by leveraging new technologies, ideas, personnel, inventions to meet new challenges and higher standards. And this is what was so remarkable in our research when we looked at all these other cities, is that some of the world's most innovative cities were actually some of the world's most exclusive. So we were very conscious that when we were going to do this strategic map, that we wanted to push both together. There's no reason why we couldn't. No one told us we couldn't. We just haven't seen other cities move in that same direction. So we were very conscious that that was the direction that we in Pittsburgh wanted to go forward in. These were the 6 focus areas that drive inclusive innovation. As you can see, we're talking about everything from addressing the digital divide to more meaningful ways to engage the citizens, to providing open data and the application of data, to clean tech, to promoting the business environment, to really just improving internal city operations and capacity. How can we make it better for you to live in the city? How can we make it a more meaningful experience to live and grow in the city? Each one of these focus areas, like I said, we've started already doing it, and I'm just going to name an action, but also tell you a little bit about the collaboration behind the action, because I think at the end of the day, I can talk a lot about the collaboration, but why don't I just show you what we've done? So public Wi-Fi. So we had one of the big things with The research, as you probably have seen, is that regardless of your gender, race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, most of us, and a growing number of us, have access to a smartphone or a smart device. That's not the barrier. The barrier is the data plan. When some people don't have the credit, when they lack a stable income to pay for the data plan, when they have fluctuations in usage and different addresses, etc. So it's not so much about the hardware that we in the city are concerned about, is how do you utilize that smart hardware? And what can we do to really pump up the digital infrastructure to ensure that the digital infrastructure is the same thing as our public good, as running water, as electricity, etc. What do we need to do in the city to really think about that? And truth to be told, we did a feasibility study from a legal, technical, financial, operational perspective on trying to get citywide Wi-Fi. It's very challenging at the end of the day. It's very expensive. There are a lot of, honestly, legal hurdles that we would have to go through, existing groups that obviously have a vested interest in the status quo. But that doesn't mean that we can just stop with that. So we've been looking at other things in which we could do to widen digital access. So come this fall, every city parks facility, that means all the rec centers, the senior centers, will have public Wi-Fi. And that was made possible through a very small grant from the Grable Foundation, but a number of other partners helping us as well. So, you know, that means that people who come to the rec centers will be able to have access to some sort of Wi-Fi to connect. The next step, though, for this is not just to have that digital infrastructure, but how do you utilize the digital infrastructure? So it's not so much that you want to, you know, go on social media all the time, but how can we ensure that grandparents know how to Skype to their grandkids, can set up an email account? How can we ensure that someone who is looking for a job can write a resume online or can look for jobs online? You know, having that training with that kind of access is the next level that we want to go to. And so we're also looking at some additional education opportunities. And there's also, with that, a wealth of partners that have been doing some amazing classes and training and tools that we don't have to reinvent the wheel to do. We can just tap into their expertise and really look into it. There's obviously a huge coalition, Remake Learning Council, that's been really looking into education at a wider scale to ensure that there is that technical know-how and technical skills. And we've been very much in partnership with them as well. Next one is just, you know, how can we make meaningful experience and engagement to the citizen? And this is something that's a bit tough because we as city government often just hear the complaints, right? If something goes wrong, we'll hear about it, but if something goes well, you're not necessarily going to write a letter or send a tweet out on "Good job, Mayor." He hears a lot of, unfortunately, you know, complaints because that's the motivation that you will have. But you know, beyond that initial touch point, what else can we do to make sure that you'll have a meaningful way to touch with the mayor and city officials? So I oversee communications technology, and that includes everything from the city cable channel to the print shop, to social media, to the website. How many of you have seen or watched the city cable channel? Yeah. How many of you have followed any city social media? You see that? That's the difference, right? So my job is to ensure that regardless of whatever tool you use, you will have consistent, up-to-date information across. I think that those two questions just reveal, like, obviously the same people who use social media aren't necessarily the same people who watch the city cable channel. But it doesn't matter because I need to reach to every citizen, or try to reach as many citizens in the city as possible. So we've actually been doing a lot more independent and creative programming on our city cable channel to alert those that do watch it on all the different initiatives that are happening in the city. We've had a very active social media presence, obviously starting from the mayor himself. And we've done some outreach on Engage Pittsburgh, which I mentioned previously. You know, we're asking you very direct questions, and we're getting some really good feedback on, you know, everything from open data sets to culture of recycling to immigrants coming into the city. We've also, through our Office of Community Affairs, done some extensive town halls. A couple weeks ago, we just had 2 capital budget hearing sessions, asking you how we should spend our capital budget. Where should those investments be? And previously, the only way you could find out how we spent money in the city is if you were, you know, you had the time to go through our very tedious website and look through 200 pages of this PDF, which is our capital budget or operational budget. And it would be this PDF of just Excel spreadsheets, which isn't the most user-friendly, searchable, and probably meaningful way to find out how we are accountable to you. Recently we launched Fiscal Focus, which actually takes that PDF, pulls that data, and says that you can now search not only by year, department, but also visually see our spending. And so that was just a first step in terms of trying to make sure that what we're doing is knowledgeable and accountable for you. But there's tons of other ways that I'm sure that we can make this a better experience. Open data, this is a really exciting thing, and I'm sure resonates with many people in this room, that early last year we passed the open data legislation, as you know, which makes all data that's non-confidential, non-personal, open by default. And since then, we've been working on a really strong partnership with Allegheny County, the University of Pittsburgh, and a slew of other partners to start pulling that data, cleaning that data for the first release. We are excited that we'll be releasing our first set of data in the fall, and that's when magic can happen. That's when we just give you the data, and I know just based on the creative minds that are in this room, you can develop a wealth of different applications and knowledge with it. But there are other groups that we know, and this is why we need to make sure that they are a part of this, that might not know how to apply that raw data. And so we need to make sure that the data that is just released is really translated into informed decision making. So we will be looking into ways to empower community groups, neighborhood groups, individuals to improve their data literacy, to improve training in terms of how they can look at the data and be more informed. Are people aware of PGH Street? No? So this actually came out of Steel City Code Fest, which is one of our annual hackathon that us and a number of partners, including the URA, Google, are involved with. And this was last year's winner. Previously, I can tell you, as some of you may know, it's very hard to figure out or remember when your recycling date is, and when your trash pickup is, and when your yard, is it every other week, or is it like once a month? And this type of information, even I admit, it's hard to keep up with. Basically, what the team did as part of the Steel City Code Fest is pull this data and create this very simple tool that you can type in your address, and it's live actually, so you can actually use it right now, and you actually get not only the dates of your waste management, but you also get reminders sent to you, which means that you can also send reminders to your roommate, to your husband, to your boyfriend, whoever, to make sure that they know when to put out the waste on whatever designated day. It's a really simple tool, but I can tell you it's made a wealth of difference to many people in the community. But I can also tell you it's made a wealth of difference internally. So 311, which is our first point of contact call center, used to get these questions as well, right? I forget when my recycling day is. Can you check that for me? So what 311 operators did was that they had a huge binder, and they would literally just check where the address was in this binder. And everyone had a huge binder as part of their desks. Now they do the same thing. So their response time is much more meaningful, faster, and better for those that might not have access to the web and just want to make a phone call. 311 operators use the same thing as you might do on the front end. And that's something that just happened with the community. We were just able to give data sets away, and you were able to create something great that helped us externally, but also internally. And improving capacity, how can we ensure that our city workers are performing to the highest levels of service for you? How can we make it easier when you need to get various services from the city? Are you guys familiar with this one? Snowplow Tracker? So we launched this last winter, and we're hoping to do a second version for this upcoming winter. Again, this was just a great example of what you see externally as just an easier way to plan your transport, plan your commute when there is that inevitable snowstorm in the city. But also it really helped us in the back end, because now the Director of Public Works can see where his crews are, and in real time, due to changing conditions, move his crews dependent on priorities and dependent on where the demands are. So that really helped us even in the back end in terms of using these types of technologies through an extensive collaboration. And we're now working on the second version with CMU through this Metro 21 project. So university research has been invaluable to us. We as the city don't necessarily have the research expertise, the resources, the capacity to really study, analyze the latest research and development. There's a wealth of information that's happening across the universities, and we've been really lucky as a city to have so many different universities and smart people in the city. So we've developed this really great partnership with CMU, with Pitt, and others to take the research that's already been done and try to apply it in some pilots. And the idea is that it's a win-win, because they actually get feedback on the application of a real-world issue, and they can tweak it as they go, and if it works, they can scale it. And this type of collaboration is just been unprecedented in terms of its level of closeness. We meet with both universities and other universities on a pretty frequent basis on a number of projects, from public works issues such as Snowplow Tracker, paving analytics, to sustainability, looking at our fleet management, looking at energy data from buildings, to neighborhood empowerment, looking at surveys on low-income communities and health of our city residents, and taking that and seeing what could be done in terms of policy making. Clean tech, another thing, as obviously we all acknowledge our strong industrial past, but how can we really carry it forward? And really thinking about clean tech on multiple fronts. We've been working with a number of different partners on the Eco Innovation District, and what's really great about this and many other major developments that are happening in the city is that suddenly we have individual technologies that have been proven by itself, integrated in a holistic platform, being tried out on this in a number of sites as part of the planning process from the very beginning, with a number of stakeholders involved. And so this drives a lot of what is seen in terms of improved sustainability, especially going hand in hand with our soon-to-be updated climate change action plan, our resilience plan that we've been working with the Rockefeller Foundation on as one of the 100 resilient cities, and a slew of other initiatives. Finally, it's about local business. And so local business, I think, is an important part, and this is something that we found also in our research. When you are a tech startup, or when you are, a really innovative entrepreneur, it's assumed that you already have a certain level of technical know-how and can build a web presence, for example. But not everyone can do that. And when we say we want to promote small business, that means all small businesses, which includes your mom and pop shop down the streets, the dry cleaner, the hairdresser, etc. And we last night had the closing graduation of the Center for Connecting Urban Entrepreneurs with a slew of partners. And we put together a 12-week pilot with a group of small business owners, a hairdresser, a bow tie maker, a different fudge maker, crafts galore from goods and services, who didn't have a web presence, but were doing some amazing goods and services work. And we put them in a 12-week training program with these partners, and they learned how to build a website, how to get a social media presence, how to collect online payment, and how to maintain all those aspects. They were put in a class, but then they also had a team of mentors really guiding them on the way. And it was their graduation last night, and every single one of them had a finished website that they were able to showcase, and we're extremely proud of. And that's what's so exciting when you have that kind of collaboration and that sense of achievement across the board, which was wonderful. So these, like I said, are kind of the 6 focus areas, but there's a slew of actions within each of these areas, and I welcome your input in terms of what more can be done, what's missing, what are we doing that's not as good, that we can work on, because ultimately this is a vision, and it's not going to be easy, but we're making lots of different steps to get there, and we depend on a slew of different partners to really support us, and I think that's what makes collaboration so important for something like this. So thank you.